been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I ought to slow down, standing in the pouring rain.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Tristan and Tony here with the Zero Duck 30 podcast. So if you've been following us and watching our videos and stuff, you've seen that we work with the Huntwise app as far as our GPS and hunt planning and just the strategy to our hunts. And Tony, why don't you tell them a little bit about how they can get a discount through the Huntwise app?
You bet. I'm going to start it off with, if you haven't heard me say it yet, download the app for free. All right? Go download the app for free. And then, but here's the cool thing. We got an exclusive discount with Huntwise. Duck 30, and you're getting 20% off. And that's off the Pro and the Elite version. So guys, check them out.
So today, guys, we're excited. We have Stevie Barefield, which is Stevie, your title is the marketing director for Mojo, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And we're super excited. We've worked with Stevie for the past year as brand ambassadors, and it was just a cool opportunity to get on and kind of talk about that kind of relationship. But Stevie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your your background and then kind of your role with Mojo and day to day and all that.
Yeah, of course. Well, first off, thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited to be on this. You guys do such a good job.
Oh,
but
thank you.
Thank you.
Just a little bit of background on myself. I've been with Mojo going on about 7 years now. I was trying to think back before this call, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been there 7 years. But yeah, my title is technically marketing director, but if it has to do with advertising, social media, PR, media buying, sponsorships, Mojo TV, I probably have my hand in it. So, you know, we're such a small company with such a national brand reach. I think people forget that we're still a small business. And so, you know, our team is pretty small. We kind of have to wear a lot of hats, all of us do. But it keeps us on our toes, and it's super exciting.
That's awesome.
And so before you got into Mojo, what was did you go to school for marketing, or how did you kind of get into that field?
Yeah, so that's kind of a funny story. When I went to college, I went to Auburn.
Okay.
And I went for industrial design, which is product design.
Okay.
And I had in my mind that I wanted to design cars.
Oh,
and
wow.
So, you know, I made it through Auburn, and I figured out that field was extremely competitive, and you have to be in the top, 1% to 2% of your class to even think about doing that.
Wow.
And I definitely was not in the top 1% of my class. So I had to shift my interests a little, and I ended up going to law school. I'd actually graduated from Auburn in 2008, and, the economy wasn't great. I had a hard time finding a job, so that's why I ended up going to law school. And, from all of that, I kind of discovered, hey, I have a creative side, but I also have a very analytical side to me. And I figured out that marketing was really the best fit for how my brain worked. And, while I could practice law just fine, I could go into some sort of product design just fine, but I just discovered that marketing was the smart way to go. And so after I graduated from law school, I landed a job at an advertising agency in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who specialized in hunting industry clients. So I got to work with some very big name manufacturers like Remington and Mossy Oak and SCI, Bowtech. And
Wow.
So that was kind of my first introduction into this world of the hunting industry.
Wow.
And it seemed so big at the time, but the longer that I'm in it, the kind of smaller it gets, I guess. But yeah, I have a very interesting background, but that's it all led me to here, to Mojo.
That's
Wow.
awesome. And, what is some of Mojo's backstory as far as getting founded and just kind of the whole idea?
Yeah. So it's an interesting story too. I guess it's been a little over 20 years ago. In the 90s, the spinning wing decoy, that's kind of when that concept first came about. People were figuring out, hey, this actually works.
Mhm.
And so a few people here and there were making these decoys, but the mechanics were off. They weren't being made in a way that could be mass produced. It just wasn't working out. And so here comes these three guys from Northeast Louisiana. Enter Terry Denman and Murray Crow and Jeff Simmons. And Murray Crow, he's very good friends with Terry Denman. He's an inventor. He's very intelligent. And his friend Jeff Simmons, who owns Simmons Sporting Goods out of Bastrop, Louisiana, a huge sporting goods store. Jeff, I mean, he knew he could sell these decoys no problem. Jeff's a big duck hunter, he was like, Murray, you got to make this decoy for me. And so Murray enlisted Terry. And Terry, if you guys didn't know, he has an engineering background. He's an engineer by trade. He had an engineering firm for decades that he just retired from. And so Murray enlisted Terry and said, hey, let's make this decoy. And so all three of them combined made basically this better mousetrap. So something that could be produced, it worked right. And that's when the Mojo Mallard was born. That was about 1999. Wow. And so, so not even a year later, that's when Mojo Outdoors was born. And then I want to say by like 2007, that's when they started expanding the whole line of waterfowl decoys and accessories. And by that point, Mojo was really becoming a household name. Mm-hmm. And, by 2012, Terry had acquired all of the interest in Mojo. And so at that point, Terry's engineering mind, went full in on this, and he just started creating product after product. Wow. And that's when it went to, the full line of motion decoys for waterfowl, predator, turkey, dove, anything. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're at right now.
Wow.
And it's great.
Wow.
So let me just kind of throw in a question here. So where is your base operations and the manufacturing done? Can you talk a little bit about that process of like, the production, the manufacturing of the products?
Yeah. So, I mean, it all starts, everything is designed in Monroe, Louisiana by Terry Denman for the most part. Terry, he lives his life thinking of these different contraptions, these different concepts that will attract ducks or, another animal. Mm-hmm. And so he has to somehow take what's in his mind, put that on paper, and work with basically a product designer. And, they put it in a computer, make sure all the mechanics are working. Is this something we can mass produce? And I mean, it's no secret that we manufacture overseas. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're doing right now. But everything is designed in-house in Monroe, Louisiana.
Wow. Very cool.
Gotcha. And one thing, so you've been with Mojo for 7 years, so you have seen like the come up of social media big time. And, mm-hmm. When I started paying attention to Mojo, at least on Instagram, was a little over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, before we became brand ambassadors. But I remember it being around like 200,000 followers, and I looked yesterday and it's at 227. So I wanted to ask you because you obviously know the level of dedication that it takes to build a social media presence and be consistent and stuff. So I wanted to kind of have you talk a little bit about what kind of dedication it takes to do that. Mm-hmm.
I feel like we could do a whole separate podcast on social media, and right. I know you guys know this.
Yeah.
But handling social media and growing any type of social media is a 24/7 job. I don't care what anyone says, because yes, you're creating content, you're editing videos, you're taking photos, you're posting, you're answering messages, all of that stuff. But when you're not doing that, you're thinking, well, why didn't that post perform like I thought it was going to perform? What could I
Mhm.
be doing better? Like, why are my analytics down? This isn't making sense. Like, did the algorithm change? Am I missing something? And it's just, a complete stress ball of a job.
Right.
But I mean, it takes a massive amount of dedication. And, one important factor in all of that is people who are first starting out trying to grow their social media pages, they're concentrating on the likes, and that's what they're focused on. And I keep telling people over and over again, likes don't matter. I mean, sure, they matter to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, the likes they're not going to matter. It's about community. And so I think that's kind of what we focus on at Mojo, is that community around this household brand. Because when Mojo first started, of course, people were buying these ducks who could afford them. And so our typical audience has always skewed a little bit older. But we can't forget about the younger people who are in high school and college who maybe are buying, 1 and 2 decoys here and there.
Right.
We can't forget about them. They're still part of the community too.
Sure.
So I think that's kind of a big part of Mojo's social media, is focusing on the different communities within our huge one.
Sure.
And, we can't forget about anyone, can't leave anyone out. So, if I have to leave something on the table about social media, is that you need to start off on the right foot and not concentrate on the likes. Like, you'll grow organically. And I mean, especially with what you guys are doing. I know you guys don't have hundreds of thousands of followers, but you're building your own community and you're not copying anyone else.
Sure.
So that speaks volumes.
Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of the path we've been trying to follow too, especially with like the podcast stuff. Because obviously, when I post a clip of the podcast or something, I'm not expecting it to perform very well. But what I am is, the people that are interacting with it, even if it's just one extra person each time, that's tuning into the podcast, I would rather have that than just posting a picture of like dead ducks every day,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, and just like, we've talked about it before, and you guys were a big part of this, and you've seen that, Stevie, when we went out and had our Teal Heaven last year, public land, and met up with those guys and had that whole experience, and me loaning the other guys a Mojo, so because, we had a million of them flying, and we had all the ducks too.
Right.
But, that's what it's all about to us is, we were talking with Gavin Powell, he's an upcoming artist. And I think about what that life is like. Sometimes it's like you're trying to win a butt kicking contest with one leg,
Right.
But Gavin made a great point. He goes, when I'm reaching out to an audience and I see that person connect with me and they come up and talk to me, he goes, I take the time to talk to them. And we really do the same thing on social media, and I feel like Mojo is so good at that. I told Trista before the podcast, I go, Mojo makes me laugh all the time, all the time. Like, I don't know where you come up with some of this stuff. And I'm like, she's just got to be like a search engine in herself, because the stuff you come up with is just, it's the uniqueness and the variety. Is so good. And I want to applaud you for that, because it's definitely, I see how you're keeping the audience engaged.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
But another thing I wanted to point out that you guys do a great job of is the education aspect on social media. You guys aren't just posting videos of kill shots over and over again, which, we're guilty of doing that. Everyone is.
Sure.
But it's the education over the whole thing. So, I mean, you guys obviously have an end goal of growing this industry with you.
Sure.
And I think that's where people lose sight in social media. It's so easy to get distracted by what the next guy is doing. Like, how can we get more likes than that person?
Sure.
And people that just lose sight of why we need to be doing this.
Yeah, no. And the reason why I'm so passionate about it is, and I keep speaking this, and I'm going to continue to speak it as we continue to move forward, is that our industry, and you know this, Stevie, everybody in the hunting industry knows that the baby boomers are now getting old enough to where they've either passed on or they can't get out there and hunt anymore. And that was a big jump in population, a big jump in hunter numbers. And so we have to fill that gap, you know, and unfortunately, there's so many young people that don't have guidance anymore, like we all did, and some of us more fortunate. And so we got to reach out to those people. So I love when you guys talk, when you were talking earlier about reaching out to all the age levels, because that is so important.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, at this point, you have to start them young and keep them loyal.
For sure.
And that kind of leads me into, so I get asked, I've probably been asked 8 or 10 times over the last year, you know, hey, how did you guys become brand ambassadors with Mojo? And from my perspective, when I was applying for it, I just tell people, you know, I was just kind of upfront on what I thought about doing with promoting the brand and kind of creating videos and, you know, educational kind of stuff, and just not just posting a picture, you know, all the time or whatever, every other month. I just tried to be really detailed and stuff on kind of my goals or whatever with Mojo. And I wanted to ask kind of what you're looking for from your end as far as that goes.
Yeah, you basically pinpointed what I look for in these brand ambassador applications. I'm sitting here looking at my computer and I have about 250 applications that I still have to go through.
Wow.
But yeah, when I go through these, I mean, you guys obviously fill out an application of all the same questions, but I'm looking for more than, you know, I'll post, you know, one still photo a week for you guys.
Right.
Okay. Well, like, what's the outcome of that? I need to know the outcome of this.
Sure.
Like, what is this going to do for your community? What is this going to do for my community? You know, what's the outcome here? And so you can really tell a difference when you're going through applications, who's going to be dedicated to this position. And I know a lot of people out there don't take a brand ambassador position or a pro staff position very seriously, because a lot of brands tend to take anyone and everyone. We don't do that. And we have a very small team. And when I'm going through these applications, I have kind of a soft spot for people who are willing to film their own hunts or film how-to videos, even if they have zero experience whatsoever. They have a YouTube channel and they're trying their best. And, you know, they get out there and they're duck hunters, and maybe they're just learning, or maybe they're pretty good at what they do. And as long as they're putting out, you know, credible information and educational information, I kind of have a soft spot for those people. And I think that's what attracted me to you guys, is that you had a plan with each question that was asked in the brand ambassador application. You had a plan to go along with it. And so if people just realize that you need to elaborate and show that you care, then you might get a spot.
Sure. And, you know, and one thing, I feel like, you know, it's nice. One thing you guys do a really good job at, Huntwise as well, some other companies, but along the way, you know, we've talked with some other companies and stuff, and you guys do a really good job of like creating a community with your brand ambassadors, educating your brand ambassadors, empowering, you know, with, like, you'll send Dropbox links and, hey, you know, we got turkey coming up and here's some pre-made videos you guys can post on your Instagram or whatever. And just the communication is just phenomenal from our perspective versus some of the other, I'm not going to name names obviously, but you know, I don't want to, you know, throw shade on anybody, but that's really impressive what you guys do with that.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, because it's a lot of work, and we do have a small team, but you know, if we're going to have a community like this, we really need to use you guys, because you're huge assets to us.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. And definitely looking forward to continuing to do that, you know.
For sure.
Absolutely.
But so we wanted to get into kind of switch gears. What were some of the challenges with COVID? You know, we've experienced it from everything from buying, just your day-to-day stuff to like, we're trying to get hats from certain companies and shirts and whatever. And they're like, yeah, it's going to be 6 months. So, and I know you've talked about it in the past with certain decoys or whatever. So kind of talk about some of the challenges you guys have had.
Yeah, in that first year, we didn't get a lot of our product in. That wasn't great for us. But on the positive side, we saw a huge uptick in people wanting to be outdoors and wanting to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And so the need for decoys was there, but unfortunately we didn't have a whole lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so when it came time to reorder, we had to make up for that. And so that cost us quite a bit, but we had to do it, is what it is. And so the next year, I think we did a pretty good job of getting everything in close to ahead of season. Some of it kind of trickled in, but it was getting a lot better. We were about 80-90% there. And I think at that point, a lot of people weren't getting containers at all.
Wow.
And so it was detrimental to a lot of companies, unfortunately.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But luckily we didn't see the brunt of that. And, now we're up and running just fine.
That's
so
awesome.
now we're just trying to concentrate on new products and getting those out to you guys.
Heck yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. As Florida duck hunters, the coot rippler is something that really caught our eye as a new thing this year.
Yeah.
I posted a clip on TikTok about it the other day being funny, but we go to all of, like, we go to Arkansas and different flyways and stuff, and people are like, you use coots in your decoy spread? We're like, yeah, we do.
Actually.
Yeah, it went as far as that we were hunting, and I'll just name them out because they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
We're hunting out with Delta Thunder Outfitters with Cade, and he's the owner of that place. And I said, you want me to bring my coot decoys? He goes, hell no. And I said, what? And he goes, I got one coot on my place, and what's his name, Roger or something?
Something, yeah.
I don't know. He gave this coot a name, and he said, I ain't going to mess with him. But it's just funny because, if you're down in the South and you don't have coots, somebody's going to probably backslap you.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
Really, if you told a new duck hunter, hey, what can you afford? And they said, I can only afford, I got $70. I would say spend that $70 on coot decoys is what I would say to do. Get you, and you don't need a duck call. You need your gun and you need some coot decoys, and that's it. But anyway, that really did. We saw that and we were like, wow, that is a really cool concept because coots are just so weird anyway. They're so weird,
right?
And when that thing is shaking like that, it seems like it picks up on the personality of a coot.
I know, exactly. I mean, when Terry first mentioned the idea of coming out with a coot pack, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. This is a joke. This is a joke, right? But as soon as they came out, we sold out. We were sold out within a month.
I believe it.
Insane. And the comments that were coming in just via email, via social media, they're like, these are the best decoys. They're so effective. And, the price point isn't that high on them. So you can go out and buy a pack or two.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was amazing. The feedback we were getting on these, it was incredible.
So, and this is going to kind of lead me into the next one.
Oh, yeah.
The dog himself, right here at the end of the table. I want to hear the backstory to Spoonzilla.
Yeah,
and I know that's not on the outline, Stevie, but you're going to talk about it.
Yes. Spoonzilla, he's one of my favorites. So I don't know if you guys remember Mike Morgan, who used to be with Mojo Outdoors. He was on Mojo TV as well. He passed away a couple years ago.
Yes, I remember
But he's involved in this story too. But it all started with our friend Ramsey Russell. You probably know who that is. But he would always make fun of Terry for not wanting to shoot spoonies. And so Ramsey and Mike would just always, crack on Terry for not wanting to shoot spoonies. They'd be in these exotic places or down in Mexico, wherever, even just down at the farm in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And Terry just, gave him a hard time about shooting spoonies. And so it was just, it's just an ongoing joke. I'll have to send you some of the videos that we have from the inception of Spoonzilla, but
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really started with Ramsey Russell, and the very first Spoonzilla, it was a wood carving, and Ramsey called it Ramzilla. And so that eventually, I think he had a gold tooth at this point.
That's awesome.
And so that eventually evolved into Spoonzilla with a missing tooth because, of course, being a Louisiana company, we had to have a redneck spoonie.
That's
and
awesome.
So that's how we have Spoonzilla, and he's still going strong after, gosh, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now.
Well, as soon as you guys came out with those shirts last year, I was like, done.
Yeah.
I was like, done. I got to have those. And it was so funny. Tristan and I went to, here in the Atlanta area, there's a city called Duluth, and we went to this outdoor, it's like, they have a live band, and there's thousands of people walking around and stuff. And we do our very best to not wear the same stuff, but we both show up with Timber Zero Duck 30 hats on and Mojo Spoonzilla shirts in our jeans and cowboy boots. And we're walking through this place, and there's anything for people dressed up in suits to pajamas. I mean, it was everything. And we'd walk by people, and they'd turn their head and looking like, what in the hell is that? And I love what it does for the company from that perspective, because when I'll tell you straight up, the first time I ever heard of Mojo was Spoonzilla, and I wasn't even duck hunting yet. Mm-hmm. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was a bow hunter. I've been bow hunting since I was 9 years old. And I saw a picture of one online that had, they were comparing it to, who's the rapper that has the big clock around his neck?
Oh, Flavor Flav.
Flavor Flav.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a big gold chain and clock around Spoonzilla's chest. And I was like, that is so awesome. What is that?
I think I've seen that picture somewhere floating around Instagram or something. Like, I've seen someone put some big chain around Spoonzilla.
Well, I started looking into it, and I was like, is this like a trend that people dress up their Spoonzillas? And there's a lot of people that dress up their Spoonzillas and start doing stuff just funny stuff like that, And I think it's great. But
that's awesome.
What a great product.
Speaking of which, how dumb are we not wearing those shirts right now?
Yeah, right? Well, you could. Well, hey, it's the reality of hunting.
Yeah.
but you wouldn't be able to see it anyway. We can't.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Shame on you guys for not putting a shoulder patch.
I know, right? Next time, the next run, we will.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
For sure.
But one thing, when I was kind of coming up with some of the notes for the podcast that I thought was really interesting, and I know we've touched on some of this stuff, but I noticed you have a blog, Hunting is My Hustle. Mm-hmm. And I just think I looked at some of the topics as far as how to get noticed by certain brands was something similar to one. And just the educational stuff of these, and I didn't dig into them too much because I didn't want to,
learn too much.
But I just thought those were really interesting, and as a resource for people, I just thought that was cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a passion project that I started a couple years ago because I didn't grow up hunting. I didn't start hunting until I was in college, and my boyfriend, now husband,
mm-hmm.
he's the one that taught me everything. And
good for
him. Yeah. And so along the way, I'm just like, I have learned so much in a short amount of time. Like, I need to be documenting this. And I had such a different perspective being on not only the hunting side and filming side with my husband, but the business side.
Sure.
And so I felt like I could just offer up some tidbits of information of how to make it in this industry that seems so cutthroat at times. And I probably don't spend enough time on this. I actually just posted a new blog 5 minutes before I got on this call.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, you'll have to take a look at it. It's
Heck
about
yeah.
sponsorships. But
Nice.
yeah, it's just some good information, and I don't really have a filter, so just kind of lay it out there.
Sure.
Hey, we respect that.
That's kind of how we do it too. Like, as far as the filter goes, I mean, we try to, keep it PG most of the time, but
Yeah, right.
I'd be lying to say if we haven't, beeped out a couple F-bombs or something.
I know. I'm really trying hard to keep it PG right now.
Hey, it's the reality,
Yeah.
and that's a tough thing for everybody to cross a path with, unless you're Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
You
right.
know what I mean? It's just like, where do I
Yeah.
draw the line on, all right, I want to be respectful, and I want people to respect us or our company for the way that we are, the mannerisms. But at the same time is, if we were out in a boat and we had 12 widgeon land in front of us and we rained them out, dude, there's going to be some words. There's going to be. I don't care who you are. It might even be like that TikTok that keeps going around with the little baby that says,
Yeah.
you know what she says.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's the reality of it, But
It is.
of course, there's reasons why we have to sometimes have those barriers. So
For sure.
Yeah.
And the other thing, kind of with your social media stuff too, that I thought was neat was I noticed you got like that decor page and stuff, and it looks like you're like really talented with that stuff. So is that just kind of like a side passion you have, or?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's another side hustle, side passion. I started putting all that stuff on my hunting blog, but then as a true marketer, I started thinking, well, is my crossover audience good enough to do this? Like, do I need to start a new platform? So I just went ahead and started a new platform and kind of do that on the side when I have time.
That's cool. That's cool. And you talked about how you got into hunting, but what is your favorite kind of hunting?
So don't tell my boss this, but deer hunting is my number one favorite all time. You can't tell me any different. I will choose whitetail hunting over anything, and it doesn't matter, gun, bow, doesn't matter to me. And I guess duck hunting comes after that, and then turkey.
Nice.
And then, of course, I can always go hog hunting. That's fun to anyone. So.
Yeah. And speaking of the turkey thing, so I saw you posted you and your husband were out somewhere and shot that turkey that was missing a bunch of feathers or something.
Yes. Yeah. We were in Oklahoma. It was the weirdest thing because, of course, we were trying to film the hunt, and disasters always happen when you're trying to film a hunt. And,
Sure.
And Kyle wasn't able to get it on camera because he was waiting for one turkey on the right, and I saw this one on the left, and I just went ahead and shot it. But he came out of nowhere, and I don't even remember seeing that he was missing feathers, but I shot him, and at first I thought, did I really shoot him in the chest? Like, am I that bad of a shot? And we just kept looking. I'm like, no, I didn't shoot him there. And his feathers were starting to grow back. And when we started cleaning the bird, in his breast, he just had gashes of where maybe another bird had, attacked him. We're not sure, but I mean, he had open wounds everywhere.
Wow.
So yeah, that poor guy, it was probably his time.
Well, and Stevie, you're saying that about deer hunting, was that the first sport that your husband introduced you to? Is that where it started for you?
Yes.
I see.
That's where it all started. We had a hunting camp near Auburn where we went to school, and we just went down there. I think we actually started dating in October, so I really had no choice. I needed to learn how to hunt, or I wasn't going to see my boyfriend at all. So that's where it all started, and I think I just got so passionate about it. I wanted to learn everything about it. And, some people just do it as a side hobby, but it's just such an interesting sport. It's an interesting concept, and you can learn things every day from conservation to the actual sport. I mean, it's endless.
It is. And, and one thing, and this is just me speaking from a different perspective. And I want to talk a little bit about women and the hunting here for just a few minutes, folks, because, I grew up, my mom, she, if you guys look her up, her name's Angel Vogel. She was the first man or woman in the world to shoot 3 non-typical bucks that made the Pope and Young record book. And I'm not trying to promote my mom right now, but what I'm trying to promote, and Stevie's tapping on it here, is this sport is one of the few sports that anybody can do. I mean, we can, handicap folks can do this sport, I got several friends that are wounded warrior veterans and stuff. My mom came here from Germany when she was 16 years old, and next thing you know, she's out shooting whitetails in the woods, and I grew up with that. So I'm a big, and back then in the 90s, my mom was like, I got to create a line so that women can easily go to the bathroom. And she goes, these male pants are terrible, and I need pants that I can go pee. And I was like, it's a real problem. I mean, I get it, and so it is so cool that, I've just, because it's been my life, is that I'm a big promoter of it because of so many reasons. I mean, it goes endless, but I think it's awesome that your husband introduced you to the sport and that you've gotten involved in the sport. And it really should go to the place with, no matter if it's children, women, handicapped, men, it doesn't matter. We're all from the same gang, so to speak, and it's a sport that we can all love. And I just think it's some of the innovation that's coming out, like the she products and different things like that for women, and helping getting them in the sport. I feel like it's going to save a lot of marriages. No, but
I agree.
But it's a very cool thing. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit because I am passionate about that, and I just think it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point to bring up because literally anyone can do it. And it really helps if you have a very patient teacher. So it helps to, if you're a girl trying to get into hunting, it kind of helps to have another girl who can teach you because it can be intimidating. I mean, firearms can be intimidating if you've never used one before. Duck hunting, if you don't know what you're doing, that's kind of scary at times. So yeah, having a good teacher is key.
Well, and I'm not trying to play grandpa here or anything like that because I'm 50, but I've been around the planet a little bit. My dad used to call it top, it's time on planet, and you get a little wise. And the thing that I think helps everyone understand is that, there's a guy years ago came out with a book called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and we do see things differently. So us as men, us as guys trying to introduce children, women, anybody, is that we got to understand that they look at things maybe a little bit differently than we do. And so I think one of the things we had on there is trying to talk about that, Stevie. What are some things that the community could do to help make it easier for women to understand the sport and get into the sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've come such a long way, especially in the past 10 years, just as far as getting women into outdoor sports. And that's largely because there are these groups that have popped up. There's these all women camo companies that have popped up, that make pants with a drop seat so you can go pee in the woods.
Yeah, and, that's awesome.
And it's those little things, and it's those little Facebook support groups that are women only who, I'm involved in a couple of them, and there's always girls on there saying, hey, I have 3 openings for a duck hunt up in Canada, these dates, does anyone want to come? Just inviting anyone and everyone who wants to come and meeting. So cool. I mean, you have the opportunity to meet people that you would have never come across in your daily life. And so I think with social media, while social media can be such a horrible thing sometimes, there is some good that comes out of it. And so, those support groups, these companies that are popping up that are women owned, there are so many resources now And I mean, I can't even tell you how many women reach out to me just on Instagram or through my blog asking, how do I get my foot in the door to work in the hunting industry?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are so many girls who want to work in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
And, being a male dominated industry, that can be a little intimidating, but,
Sure.
I'm more than happy to share my experience of kind of getting my foot in the door. So, as long as you can find more of a mentor, I guess, to help guide you, I mean, that's all you need. You need to build that confidence and just get out there.
That's awesome.
Wow, I think that's really neat, and that's something that didn't really cross my mind. But, and I'm not gonna go into all of it, but we know a lady that does everything from spearfishing to duck hunting to you name it, and she's really big on doing what you just said, taking women under her wing and kind of helping like that. And that's something I never had thought about, because I look at it from the perspective of like me and my fiance, right? Like, she certain things, like she's interested in deer hunting because she likes the way deer taste. She's interested in getting a turkey. She likes the way turkey is, but like duck hunting, she's like, no, mosquitoes and alligators in Florida and all that. No, I'm good.
Yeah, right.
So it's interesting to hear that perspective, and that's definitely, I'm gonna be hitting up Shar and saying, hey, why don't you talk to Katie a little bit?
Yeah. And we're gonna actually have her on the podcast July 4th weekend. We're going to be having her on the podcast. We're going to be having her husband, Mario, which is the president of a chapter of DU down there in Florida, talk about some of the changes that are going on. But yeah, no, it's really cool that you guys have somewhere like that you can feel comfortable learning from another woman, and where it's not intimidating, so.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a fun journey, because when I first got into this industry, I mean, it's been 15-ish years now. And so, just 15 years ago, we didn't have all of those resources, but it's slowly grown. And I think it's taken some of us who have kind of worked in the trenches and experienced a very male dominated atmosphere to kind of keep our confidence and keep, pushing through it. Like, it's okay. Like, we can do this too. So, yeah.
Well, that's the way my mom was, and she shot all of her, two of her deer out of the three on public land. And, she would go up to guys and be just like, what do you think about that? And she would. She would show it off a little bit, My mom was one that was like, what do you mean a guy can drive a ball 275 yards? This is 20 years ago, but she'd be out there at the golf course every day. Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. She's like, I'll be darned if a man is going to be better at me than this, and it's crazy and we'll talk more about this, but I'll just touch on this since we're on the subject, is one thing that my mother identified in the late 80s and early 90s, 1990s, when she set the record, is that she said, I want to kill the big dude, is what she always said. And I was like, what the heck is a big dude? Well, I would watch, sometimes I'd be within a couple of 100 yards sitting off a cornfield or something, and I would see these nice deer walk right under her tree stand and she wouldn't shoot. And I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? And she's like, he's not the big dude. And I'm like, but really what she kind of started back then was identifying that if you really want a big mature buck, in most cases, you're looking at 5.5 plus, 6.5 plus on maturity. And that's what she was looking for, and we all know as deer hunters, what changes from 4.5 to 6.5, and not every time, but a lot of cases. So I just love the boldness that my mom had when it came to the sport, and I just think it's so cool that it's just continued to grow. When I tell my mom stuff, like I'll be telling my mom about you being on the podcast, and she'd be like, oh, good for her. Tell her to go kick some ass, and she would, she's just that kind of thing for women in hunting. So awesome stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a proud thing, just to be able to share that with people, you know. And when I say grandma, and people kind of look at me sideways, and they're like, "You didn't say grandpa?" I'm like, "No, I said grandma." Grandpa did not hunt.
Yeah, your grandpa was not a hunter, so so take that and deal with it.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. So, speaking of the hunting and getting started into it, what's your favorite hunting memory, or like maybe the first, deer you shot, or what's just your overall favorite, memory?
I have to say my favorite probably happened 2 years ago when I shot my biggest deer to date.
Wow.
And it wasn't only because I shot my biggest deer, it was because it was technically my first solo hunt in the deer stand.
Wow.
Because since my husband films all of his hunts,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've always had him with me filming whenever I was hunting. And so I just kind of got used to that, just not going hunting unless we had a camera in the blind.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was out of town I want to say it was opening weekend of rifle season in Oklahoma. And he was out of town. He was duck hunting. I think he was actually filming for Mojo.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, there's a big deer in this area. He like pinpointed kind of a large area. He's like, he keeps showing up on camera every now and again. I was like, oh, okay. So I drive up to Oklahoma to our lease, which is about 5 hours away, and, get prepared for the next morning. It just felt weird going to a blind by myself without, my hunting buddy, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took a camera, I self-filmed it, and he came out. I mean, he kind of did what he was supposed to do. I actually wasn't expecting him to come out there, but he did. And, the rest is history.
Wow.
And is that posted somewhere on YouTube or something?
It is, yeah. I think it's actually on Realtree 365. I'll have to send you the link of it.
Yeah,
wow, that's
cool. Definitely would love to watch that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Very
it was really cool.
Well, cool. Well, I think that's pretty much everything we had, Stevie. I think this has been one of the definitely probably my favorite podcast so far. It's just information.
Yay.
It's just been fun, and just the perspective you give. I was looking forward to the perspective you give, because just to be able to sit down and really pick somebody's brain that's so involved in it like you.
Yeah, no, and no doubt about it. It's, there's certain, and I don't agree with this, and I said something about the last podcast, is that we're not the type of people, you guys, that we're just out here promoting Mojo because Mojo paid us or some other stuff. It's nothing like that. We're just legit brand ambassadors of Mojo, following their guidelines and trying to do the best job that we can. But it's so cool that when we can have folks like this on the podcast to let you guys hear a little bit of backstory. How did that company come about? Just like we were talking about Huntwise, in the last podcast, and how many times he said our users, our people, our followers, and that's unique. It's not talking about just putting out a product. So again, we thank you so much for taking the time out to be on this podcast and you guys' support on that end. And we look forward to some of the great things that you guys are going to be coming out with in the future.
I really appreciate being on here. I'm really thankful you guys took the time to do this, and you guys are doing a great job just sitting down and having a conversation with all of your guests on your podcast. That's the way to do it, instead of just something so structured. And, this is what's going to grow with you guys organically. So you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. So,
well, Kristen, why don't you tell Stevie, where can everybody find you? Talk a little bit about, you guys have your presence obviously on social media, but you're also on TV. Where can everybody go follow all these motion decoys at?
Yeah, well, of course, you can go to mojooutdoors.com to stay updated on all of our new and upcoming products. We do have a new product on our website. It's not for sale yet, but it is there. but it'll be coming this summer. But you can also follow us on Instagram at Mojo Outdoors _official. You can check us out on YouTube, and you can also tune in to Sportsman Channel every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. and that is Mojo TV. We're on all quarters, so check us out.
Awesome. Well, Stevie, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
All right.
It was awesome.
Thank you, guys.
All righty. Well, thank you guys for tuning in for another episode. You can find us on everything at 0duck30, and we will see you guys next time.
I've been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train.